So good afternoon, everybody. Uh, Much prefer this kind of temperature for meditating than what we had last month. It'd be better. So some of the housekeeping items are we have meditation handbooks that have come in from our new reprinting. We'd love to give you a copy, one per customer, please, and hope you can get some value out of it. Anybody take a meditation handbook last week and check it out and thumbs up, thumbs down? Yeah, even the drawings are good. Nothing else. Yep. We probably should do a new edition of that, but the reason for that book was because there wasn't anything else like it, which was a readable, understandable, comprehensive guide to meditation. What are we supposed to be doing when we meditate? In English. It was hard to find that. So we came up with it at Berkeley Monastery years ago already. Okay, that's one. Number two is Sam is going to pass out our Heart Sutras. So what's happening with the Heart Sutra? It's a legitimate method of meditation to, while you're sitting, reciting a sacred text. I think I mentioned when we began this semester of classes that there is a Hindu religious teacher in the Bay Area, well regarded, who has his students memorize texts in Sanskrit and recite them. And that's what they do when they're sitting there. That's how they're meditating. And it seems kind of counterproductive for our tradition, the Chan or Zen tradition, where the idea is to empty the mind, with empty being a verb. The mind is not empty and it won't be empty, but you can empty it out as you see things arise in the mind. That's kind of our basic method. Breathe in. Think about every mistake you've ever made. Breathe out. In each successive breath, right? I really like this cartoon because this is the real story. You think you're gonna meditate and your mind's gonna be empty? Yeah, just like that. It's like the squirrel on his wheel in the cage. So this Hindu teacher, he's a very traditional Hindu mystic, Swami, a good way of, but traditional, based in a multi-thousand-year tradition. And he gives his students a number of texts and says, pick one and memorize it and then recite it while you sit. And it's like, So I, uh, at UC Berkeley, there's a justifiably famous professor named Michael Nagler. Michael Nagler created the Peace and Conflict Studies Department at UC Berkeley, and he is a disciple of this Sri Eswaran, is the name of the teacher. And this teacher is very much not woo woo. He's really sober, solid, traditional. So Professor Nagler, when he's teaching his class, stays at our monastery. And in the morning, he's down there in the Buddha hall meditating, and he's just like that. He's just sitting straight upright and solid and doesn't wiggle, doesn't move. And at one point I said, Michael, which mantra are you reciting? Which, meditation topic are you investigating? He says, none of the above. He says, I'm reciting a preface by Patanjali, in Sanskrit. Like, no way, you're not. That's not what she said. Yes, that's what Sri Eswaran has us do. And the first challenge of it is learning. Learn the text in a strange foreign language. The second challenge is doing it enough so that you integrate with the text and the recitation becomes effortless. So you're not having to think, oh, what's next? Yeah, here's the part that I like. This part is repetitious. You're not analyzing as you recite. You're reciting it almost as if it were oxygen. That is just part of you. So interestingly enough, it's not for comprehension. You're not, he described this. He said, you're not memorizing it to learn from it. You're not memorizing it and reciting it to have any sort of mystical power inside your mind. You're reciting it to give your mind work to do, to keep it occupied with a wholesome text. You're not reviewing, sports results or calculating stock prices. The sacred text is basically harmless or even wholesome. But the point of it is to give the squirrel, to give the mind in between breaths, right? To give the mind in between breaths something to do that it is satisfied doing, that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you keep track of it. The reciting that they do is not random. They know how many times they've recited it. They know where they are in each recitation. And there's, I think, even a goal. You can, my goal is to recite it 1,000 times this month, something like that. So anyway, that was my first encounter with the sacred text recitation method of meditation. How interesting, a different way of meditating. So a little bit of that is part of what we're doing with the Heart Sutra. Just to acknowledge that is a legitimate way to use a sacred text. This text has the deeper function of being profound and very helpful in understanding the meditator, the mind, our mind, as we meditate. That's one of the real values of Prajna Paramita. So we'll come coming back to that in just a minute. Meanwhile, let us go through it once in Chinese and then once in English. And I would be happy if folks were putting some effort into acquiring one or the other language, or both. Okay, 3 times. Namo Boro Huishang Fopu Sa, then Boro Bola Mido Xinjing Guanzi Zai. Go right through. Namo Boro Huishang Fopu Sa, Namo Boro 即是空，空即是思，受伤行识亦复如是，舍利子是不生不生不灭不垢不净不脏不见是不空无色无受伤行无眼耳鼻舌身意无善声上为处无云界乃至无意识无名亦无名乃至无老死亦无老死无苦集灭道无智亦无得亦无色得故菩提萨埵亦波罗蜜多故心无挂碍无挂碍故无有空不远离颠倒梦究竟涅槃三世诸佛亦波罗蜜多阿耨多罗三藐三菩提不知般若波罗蜜多是大神咒是大名是无上咒是无量咒当除一切不真实不虚不说般若波罗蜜多波罗揭谛波罗僧揭谛菩提萨埵。Alrighty, here we go. Flip it over, English. Homage to the Prajna assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas as vast as the sea. Homage to the Prajna assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas as vast as the sea. Homage to the Prajna assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas as vast as the sea. The heart of Prajna Paramita Sutra, when Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara was practicing the profound Prajna Paramita, she illuminated the five skandhas and saw that they are all empty, and she crossed beyond all suffering and difficulty. Shariputra, form does not differ from emptiness. Emptiness does not differ from form. Form itself is emptiness. Emptiness itself is form. So too are feeling, cognition, formation, and consciousness. Shariputra, all dharmas are empty of characteristics. They are not produced, not destroyed, not defiled, not pure, and they neither increase nor diminish. Therefore, in emptiness there is no form, feeling, cognition, formation, or consciousness. No eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, or mind. No sight, sound, smells, tastes, object of touch, or dharmas. No field of the eyes up to and including no field of mind, consciousness. And no ignorance or ending of ignorance up to and including no old age and death, or ending of old age and death. There is no suffering, no accumulating, no extinction, and no way, and no understanding, and no attaining, because nothing is attained. The Bodhisattva, through reliance on Prajna Paramita, is unimpeded in her mind. Because there is no impediment, she is not afraid, and she leaves distorted dream thinking far behind. Ultimately, nirvana. All Buddhas of the three periods of time attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi through reliance on Prajna Paramita. Therefore know that Prajna Paramita is a great spiritual mantra, a great bright mantra, a supreme mantra, an unequaled mantra. It can remove all suffering. It is genuine and not false. That is why the mantra Prajna Paramita was spoken. Recite it like this. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. End of the heart of Prajna Paramita Sutra. Hey, we did. That first paragraph is where we are. The one that goes, when Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara was practicing the profound Prajna Paramita, she illuminated the five skandhas. Saw that they're all empty, crossed beyond suffering and difficulty. you would be forgiven if you said, I don't understand any of that. There's a lot of strange words in there. There are Sanskrit words. So this text we know is very concise. It's very compressed. Um, this is the shortest expression of an entire body of literature, genre of literature called the Perfection of Wisdom teachings, which include texts with 8,000 lines, 50,000 lines, and 100,000 lines. This is on the wall over there in Chinese is the Diamond Sutra, which is the next longer of the heart. The heart is the shortest. There's actually a shorter one, which is a single syllable, Om, but we won't go there. Then there's the humane king that protects the nation, Prajnaparamita, that's longer, et cetera, et cetera. So there's about, I think there's something like 12 different versions of the Perfection of Wisdom, Prajnaparamita teachings. So in this, there are words that are very difficult to translate, such as skandhas. Some people say aggregates, some people say components, some people say heaps, H-E-A-P, like a heap of leaves, a heap of dirt. So skandhas. Last week, we got halfway through the skandhas, and I want to continue because it's a great story. What the sutra says is that Guanyin Bodhisattva illuminated the 5 skandhas, saw that they were all empty, and suffering went away when she did that. So let's try it again. Guanyin is a bodhisattva. She's an awakened being, but it could be just you. It could be me. It could be anyone who looks at this thing called life, human life, and says, what is it? What is human life? Who am I? What is this thing? That's a really good, solid philosophical question. So worth looking into. And boy, oh boy, if my college curriculum had focused on nothing but that question, I would have been a satisfied customer. Just courses designed around understanding who you are, who we are. Who is my dad? Who is my brother? I would love to know from different perspectives, the Greek perspective, the Hebrew perspective, the Chinese, Indian, contemporary views. What did Freud say? You know, this is worth studying. To my mind, more important than economics, more important than statistics and computer science, to my mind. I know that's heresy. So marketing, let's go all learn how to market, take our place in the marketplace, and have no clue about who we are and why that person is just so attractive to me and that person, I just wish they dropped dead. How come this is not taught to kids, to us? Anyway, the Buddha said, what is a person? Buddha said a person is 5 parts, 5 components, 5 pieces. Body, 1, mind, 4. 5 parts, body and mind. Body, like we said last week, breaks down, can be described as earth, air, fire, water. And it's absolutely true of every person who's ever lived and every person alive and those who will come. Kookaburras, possums, pythons, all made up of solid parts, liquid parts, moving parts, and warmth to whatever degree. When we lose any one of those parts, life stops. If we, cold corpse, are they breathing or not breathing? Are they, if you block your nose, stop the breath, you die. When we're buried, the earth goes back to earth. So all those 4 parts, earth, air, fire, and water, those are the makeup of the body. That's one of the 5 skandhas. And now, what's the point of that? The Buddha was not a philosopher. His job was not to ponder on these questions. That's not what the Buddha did at all. His goal was to help people end suffering. He had done so after asking himself that question and spending 6 years in the bush of India, investigating all the different yogas, all the different teachings, all the different traditions. Some were helpful, some were completely unhelpful. And he rejected those that, like hanging upside down from a tree branch. There were teachers who said, this is the way to enlightenment. You know, walk on these coals. That will help you wake up. By golly. Others said, sleep on a bed of nails. They really did. We mortify the body, and that way we reach nirvana. Well, it didn't. It didn't. Buddha rejected those. And some were too extreme. Some were too gentle. They didn't challenge. They didn't break you out of your comfort, mental comfort zone. 6 years later, the Buddha woke up, and he said, strange indeed. Everybody's got the Buddha nature, but because of false thinking and attachments, we don't understand it. So he set about helping people wake up. That was his job. In the process, he described what he witnessed as the thing that we cultivate with. He said it's a body and it's a mind. The mind has 4 components. The first one we talked about last week. This is number 2 of the skandhas. Everybody say skandha? Skandha. Aggregate. Component. All work for translation of skandha. Number 2 is called feelings. And feelings, we talked about last week, it divides into both sensation, which is like pinch. Ooh, I felt that, right? Pinch. Oh, I felt that. I stubbed my toe this morning and it really hurts. I managed to kick the leg of my sofa. Boom, when I was wearing flip-flops. And that was sensation. That was this bright sensation for about 10 minutes. It was like, oh, I felt that. Ow. Oh, so that's sensation. But that's only half of that second skandha. The other half is emotion. The 2 of them together are called the feeling skandha, samjanya in Sanskrit. So the feeling skandha, if you think about, here's number 1 skandha's body, earth, air, fire, water. You go, let's say, although this is not the way the Buddha described it, if we look at the 5 skandhas as going progressively inwards, so the outer one, the outer layer is the, you can hear it. That's the solid parts. If we go in, we're still connected to the body, but we're 1 step more refined, subtle, you could say. Feelings. So, I'm sorry, let me try again. Sensation is, I felt my toe kicking the sofa. And so it's part of the mind because I felt it in my mind as well as in my nervous system. So there's a physical component, but there's a mental component as well. If we go 1 step deeper, we're still in the feeling skandha, but it's emotion. Emotion doesn't necessarily have a physical component, but it can. For example, when you get really scared, anybody ever experience your teeth chattering when you're scared? Right? So scared your knees knock. It's something has triggered fear, but it has a physical component. Some people report when they fall in love, they feel drunk, they feel giddy, lightheaded, and yet it's just looking at the beloved, and it triggers something inside, so that there's a physical component to the feeling of being in love. Launched 1,000 songs and 1,000 bad movies, right? So that's the second half of the second skandha is this emotion. The Buddha said 7. Qi, nu, ai, ju, ai, wu, yu. I have to go through the list. Qi, happiness. Nu, anger. I, sorrow. So happiness, qi, nu, I, sorrow. Ju, fear. Love, hate, and desire. That last one, desire being an emotion, is an interesting description, but we'll go with it for now. So emotions, they arise in the mind out of nowhere. They can trigger the body into reactions. Uh, when, if anybody's ever been really jealous, it tastes green. Jealous tastes like copper. It's like brass. Jealousy is, it's a green feeling. It's funny. Um, I had one episode with jealousy once, which shocked me because I didn't think it was possible. And yet it tasted like bile, something out of the gallbladder. So that's number two. Number three, we just touched on it last week, but we haven't gone into it. Number three is thinking, the thinking skanda. And it's fascinating because this one is entirely non-physical. It's entirely mental, you could say, which is to say, thoughts. They arise, they come into being, they bloom, they decay, and they're gone, to be replaced by the next one. It rises, it blooms, we register it, and it's gone. The Buddha said, this is totally, quote, natural. This is part of being a human, and it's not you. Our thoughts are not us, in as much as they're there. But to say we own them or that I exist in my thoughts, not. They're almost a function. The same way dreams are a function. They're just there. The same way humor is a function. Something's really funny, you know it. You know it's funny. You laugh because, well, that's funny. A comedian whose jokes aren't working, they tell their joke and it's not funny. You just know it when it is. Same kind of function. Thoughts rise, bloom, they exist. You can watch them, they're gone. And the Buddha gave lots of analogies, just like the best one that I know is waves on the beach. We've got incredible the beaches of Queensland, New South Wales, to go watch. You go down to Burley Heads and whoosh, there it comes. Surf hits the shore, replaced by another one. And then guess what? There's another one coming. And they are the ocean, but they're simply a function of the ocean hitting the shore, going back out to come again. The thoughts in our mind are just like that. The Buddha said we go wrong when we identify with it. Oh, this one is really smart. They can think things through really well. Oh, I guess I'm just never going to amount to anything because I didn't pass my gaokao, my liankao. I didn't pass my qualifying exams that tell me my future. Am I going to be a college student or am I going to join the workforce? One test. At what age? When do you take the gaokao? 什么时候? 9 in. Liankao, you didn't take it. You weren't here already. Malaysia. What age? Agwan? 17 for the gaokao. For the qualifying exams? 17? Is that it? And boy, everything, that's the big dividing line. And in the US, I guess, LSAT, the PSAT, the SAT, we have that scholastic aptitude, which measures how good you are at taking tests, not how much scholastic aptitude you have. Anyway, that's another story. So to identify with this and say, and there, because of some external measurement, therefore you are X, Y, and Z, is a mistake. It doesn't have anything to do with measuring your value as an individual or your ability to think. Some people, there are different intelligences. If one way to immediately improve the quality of standardized testing would be to come up with a test that measured spatial aptitude. How well can a child do a handspring? And someone who scores, in the 15th percentile in their intellectual test, but might be able to do incredible gymnastics, different kinds of intelligence. Come up with a test to measure aesthetic knowledge, someone who can actually see in different perspectives and on a two-dimensional plane draw an apple that looks like you could pick it off the paper and eat it, things like that. That would be more fair, and certainly it gives you a better perspective of the person. Anyway, not to digress. So the Buddha said that third skandha is a function, and we absolutely need it. It is us, and we can be more clear on watching it. But where we go wrong is when we say, "Oh, I am that thinking. Those are my thoughts." They're not. They're just thoughts. And we have these incredible stories of people who have near-death experiences who say, as they were heading towards the light at the end of the tunnel, they remembered something very mundane, that they had forgotten to feed the dog, or that they had an appointment with a hairdresser that they forgot to cancel or something. And it's just those thoughts think us. They visit us almost. So that's very interesting to kind of be able to step back on the thoughts in the mind and not identify with them and not grasp them. So that's number 3. Number 4 is a fascinating skandha. It's called samskara, which is hard to translate. There are various translations. People call it the formation, formati, when the formation skandha. Other people call it the activities skandha, both of which don't get it. In Chinese is xing. So the first is se, yan si the se. That's form, body. Se, shou, feelings. Qiang is thinking. Number 4 is xing in Chinese. So that's where activities comes from, but it doesn't cover it. Here is activities. It's thinking one level deeper, although if you say it's only directional, then you want to know what's at the center. It's not all 5 interpenetrate, but it kind of gives us a way to remember them as we think about going in. So thinking was number 3, and it's pretty subtle. Thoughts are, you can't grab them. It's not that we don't have them. We have them, but where do what color are your thoughts? Well, depends on the day, So they're really subtle. The 4th skandha, samskara, skandha, is thoughts that solidify into attitudes. If we are our political attitudes, somebody is liberal, somebody is Labor, somebody is Tories, somebody are Democrats, somebody is a Republican, somebody's an independent, that's a function of the 4th skandha. Somebody's a racist. Oh, that person and everyone like them, they're X, Y, and Z. Based on superficial observation, you label. That's a function of the 4th skandha. Someone who is all-encompassing. Oh, all God's children, sing and have a place in the choir, no exception. That's the 4th skandha working. Somebody who loves animals, his 4th skandha function. Somebody who is deadly afraid of spiders, 4th skandha. It's thinking that gets solidified or calcified or congealed over time. That's where it happens. Think about this. Where is your language learning? 4th skandha. The ability to go from data to theory. Oh, X, Y, and Z, therefore, that's a 4th skandha function. The ability to say, moi non plus, ouais, je parle français aussi, comme ça, et toi? 4th skandha function, to be able to relate eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and body into concepts, into theory. That's a fourth skandha. Some people do it more fluently than others. Some other people, it's kind of a no-fly zone, right? Perfectly normal. But the other half of the fourth skandha is fascinating because why? It's the place in the mind where autonomic processes work. Your breathing, your digestion, your metabolism, your dreaming, your fight or flight response, all those kind of the central nervous system that's governed by that skandha. And the Buddha says, yeah, you need it. Everyone's got one. Some people are, more in touch with it. And there's nobody home doing it. It's a function. It's part of being alive in a body. There's no self there. Okay, how are we doing? I see some folks are like, this is a longer story than I was counting on. So it's a great story. Anybody who's ever taken a psychology class, this is the Buddha's psychological inventory. This is what the Buddha said about who we are. Okay, so how interesting, and how useful, really useful, because it gives a new perspective when things go wrong. Things like, well, I'm feeling really depressed recently. I'm feeling really hopeless these days. Oh, are you? Well, what part of body does hopeless live in? Where do you experience hopelessness? Is it an emotion? I'm not sure. Which one of the emotions? Is there any physical component to hopelessness and despair and grief? Well, grief, yeah. It hurts my heart. I feel a weight in my heart. That's grief. Okay, let's look into that. What thinking, which thoughts lead to grief? Well, they keep coming and going, but they won't stop coming. Oh, that's helpful, but they do go, don't? Yes, they do, So you use the five skandhas to analyze your experience. It's just the Buddha's way of describing what it means to be human, and it gives you a little distance from which to go, it's not me, is it? But I'm experiencing it, but I can exhale and step away from it too, because why? In my meditation, I noticed that there's this place where I go where, without blotting it out, those skandhas don't move me. I can let them go. They can function just fine. I don't have to react. That's very helpful. Okay, so that's number 4. 2 parts. One is solidified thoughts. Number 2, autonomic processes. Processes that happen without choice. To say you're going to go in there and really modify your metabolic rate, how fast you digest food, not. It's just in there working. And you got it because you're alive in a body, but you don't mess with it. It's autonomic, meaning happens by dint of being alive in a body. It's not a choice. Okay, last one. We made it. We got to number 5. Good job. What is number 5? The 5th skandha is consciousness. Consciousness. And boy, oh boy, this one, we probably need to take a break. Too much talk. Here we go. How about a palate cleanser? All right. That's why we bring the banjo. Clean the palate. Medicine master, thus come. Medicine master, thus come. I got a better idea. Since we got Avalokiteshvara, how about this one? She's connected to the Heart Sutra. Okay, let's look at that consciousness skandha. And again, this is the Buddha's description of what's going on. As I'm, being our Boy Scout trail guide to the five skandhas, we are using the five skandhas right this minute. Feeling the chair or the cushion under your rear end, feeling the moisture in the air and the temperature. We're not sweating like we used to last month in here. That's body, feeling, sensation, thinking, breathing, and we're using all five right this minute as we sit. They are us. Skandhas are us without any choice. Today, oh my goodness, I had a baby Corella, a little Corella baby, first time with Dad. I think it was Dad. Dad brought the little Corella baby out for his first encounter, and the baby was like sitting on the rail going, you know, and I heard this different voice. I looked around. There it was, this little nebbish of a bird. And Dad is, being stern and being protective. And the baby's like, feed me, feed me, feed me, feed me. I'm hungry. And I got some great photos of it. And it was just so charming because the baby was imitating the adult bird. You could see it. The baby was like watching Dad and then trying to sit up straight. But I'm hungry. Okay, it was just so cute. And I recorded, I got some photos, I'll post them. And five skandhas. They're bird skandhas, Corella skandhas, but there they were. Buddha said, in the womb, and if you'd like to argue whether fetal personhood is reality, I can introduce you to the Alabama Supreme Court. They will happily argue with you about that, but let's not go there now. Nonetheless, at somewhere in the birthing process, the skandhas come. And when we're born out, we have body and mind. They're functioning right there. With our last breath, they fall apart. The earth, air, fire, and water scatter. The feelings, thoughts, activities, consciousness scatter. And as soon as we're back, there's another set. So we have never not incarnated without the skandhas. And what is it? It's a helpful story. This is a really helpful story about what's going on, about what it means to be alive. Consciousness, number 5, skandha number 5. This is to say, and you gotta stick with me as we go through this, because it takes a little bit of holding some ideas in parallel here. So the Buddha said we've got how we know things depends on what are called 18 realms. Oh man, 18. 6, 6, and 6. What are the 6 senses? They are, we've known them since childhood, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body. And the Buddha said the mind is a sense. It's an organ, it's a function. So eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind, 6 senses. How do they function? The eyes see sights, the ears hear sounds, the nose smells, the tongue tastes, the body feels sensation, and the mind knows or cognizes or registers what the Buddha called dharmas with a small d, things, okay, objects. So, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, sight, sound, smells, taste, sensation, of touch, dharmas, 6 and 6. 6 more, which are what? 6 consciousnesses that get in between the organ and the object. And what do? They know the difference. That's what consciousness does. That's 18 realms. This is the 6th skandha. So, eyes, eye organ, sees the object of things to see, sights, and the eye consciousness is in there going, oh, that's my friend Colette. Oh, there's Tracy, right? Oh, there's Donna. I know these people. My eye sees them and I go, I know who that is. I recognize that sight. Oh, I don't know her name. She's new. Who is that? Ah, there's a friend. Ah, there's somebody I better be careful about. Oh, there's an extra piece of pie. I wonder if there's some ice cream to put on top of that pie. Let's go take a look. Open the fridge. That's the consciousness of sight is in there telling the difference. It's a function. It's just a working. It's not you. It's not me. But you don't exist without it. Okay? Sound. I can do the same breakdown with sound the same way. Oh, that's such a nice voice. I like that person's voice. I bet they're a nice person. Ooh, every time I hear their voice, I feel my toes curl up because it's like fingers on a blackboard. And we're in there with the sound, the consciousness of the ear, loving and hating, ignoring and clutching. We just do it. It's part of the function of the skandha of consciousness. Likewise, smells, likewise, tongue, likewise, body. That's my favorite sweater. I feel so comfortable when I put on that hoodie. I don't like that sweater because it's scratchy. That wool is just, I need a t-shirt under it or that wool is going to scratch me to death. So that's the consciousness of body. Now, so we've got eye consciousness, ear, nose, tongue, body consciousness. When we get to the mind consciousness, oh boy, there are 3. There are 3 mind consciousnesses. There's just like eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, there's the consciousness of mind, which functions like a file clerk. What it does is the mind is in there receiving sights from the eye consciousness, sounds from the ear consciousness, smells, tastes, sensations from the others, and it categorizes them as thoughts or awareness. And it's very much like a file clerk, they say. It goes, I saw that, I know that, I hear that, I think that, I see that, I smell that, I taste that. It knows them, it orders them. The 6th consciousness. This, by the way, is a place where, don't quote me and turn off the microphone. This is where marijuana or any substance gets in and distorts. It functions on that. Not that I would know, not that I don't know these things, but where dope gets into that 6th consciousness. And it's fun in alcohol too, because it interrupts that orderly function, knowledge of sensation, of cognition, of knowing that sight. I recognize her. I don't know him. Intoxicants operate there to distort it so you feel giddy and fun. You can go out and dance like nobody's watching because you're high or you're drunk. That's where that happens. Okay. Now, all of that 6th consciousness takes that knowledge and that experience, which is still no self. Nobody's there. It's really cold and logical. There's nobody judging or preferring or disliking. It's just very mechanical, objective thing happening. it takes all that experience and sends it across consciousness number 7. Consciousness number 7 is called the transmitting consciousness. We've all got one. It functions, and it takes the raw material of experience of eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind, sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch, consciousness, sends it into consciousness number 8. Consciousness number 8 is called the storehouse. It's the alaya in Sanskrit, A-L-A-Y-A. The Chinese call it the hanzang shi, the containing consciousness. And that's where karma lives. Our old friend karma, which means what? Karma means action and results. There's no good or bad when it plants those, they call them bijas or seeds of action. So once the eye sees something triggering the body into action, and all the sensations that happen gets filed and labeled by the 6th consciousness. The 7th consciousness is just like a gate, like a bridge. Think of it as the corpus callosum, talking between hemispheres of the brain, sends it across into this spaceless storehouse. Then those seeds get planted. It's not dead space. It's like a garden. And those seeds, when the time is right, they come back as the good, the results of the good that we did and the results of the bad that we did, blooming, and we experience the reality that we walk through, which in fact is a function of the deeds that we did. Now, this is suddenly, suddenly it's no longer impartial, objective, is it? Suddenly it's like, oh, I don't know if I like that. So let's not go into that 8th consciousness quite yet. I want to look at the 7th consciousness. To review, body, mind, one body, 4 skandhas of the mind, which are feelings, thoughts, autonomic processes or activities, and then consciousness. Consciousness divides into those 18 realms, 6 of which are consciousness. 2 with the eyes, 2 with the organ, the eye, the object of sight, and the consciousness in between that's going, oh, that's red. Look at that, that's dark. Oh, that's bright, right? That's the eye consciousness. It sends its information, its data. At this point, it's still data, it's zeros and ones. Sends it to the 6th consciousness. The 6th consciousness labels it and sends it on across this 7th consciousness. 7th consciousness is fascinating because why? We can experience it when we meditate. You're sitting there and you realize that you've just had an angry thought. Or you're sitting there and what? Breathe in 7th consciousness, right there. That's the 7th consciousness. Going, oh yeah, every evil thing I've ever done, every mistake I've ever made, suddenly I'm aware of, oh, what kind of devil magic is happening here, right? That's the 7th consciousness just functioning perfectly normally. Now, let's put ourselves to sleep at night. Time to go to bed, lie down, ready for tomorrow, good night's sleep, tucked in, good pillow and all, temperature is right, everything. And suddenly you're kicked into some fantastical dreamscape. Unbelievable things are going on. Think of the dreams you had last night. I had some doozies. And it's like, what in the world? Where did all that come from? How is that possible? 7th consciousness relaxed, and the contents of the 8th consciousness came back to the part of your life that is not asleep, which is your 6th consciousness. The sixth consciousness doesn't sleep. That's the thing that knows you're dreaming. Your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and body are asleep. That mind is still, oh man, I can't believe I had that incredible dream last night. Like, what? And then you wake up and you can't remember it because why? Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and body are sending impulses in. Your sixth consciousness goes back to work receiving, and the seventh consciousness sends it in to the storehouse. As soon as you wake up, and when you go to sleep, it's like these shut down and this goes that way. So it's like, what is this? This is a model of how personality works as described by the Buddha 2,500 years ago. Interesting. Useful, right? It's just a model. It's an old one. And when Carl Jung got a taste of it, he got a Japanese Buddhist version of it, and he was fascinated. There was a much heralded meeting between Carl Jung and D.T. Suzuki, who kind of introduced the Western world to Zen. And it was sadly very unsatisfying. They didn't communicate very well. And Jung apparently didn't respect Suzuki, and I think it was mutual. So when people hear about this, they go, oh, what did they say? Did they confirm each other's? No, it didn't happen. So Jung, interestingly, came up with collective unconscious. And this idea of the collective unconscious, if people are familiar with Jungian analytic psychology, it's really similar kind of in perspective to the eighth consciousness. Is it the same? But they're both looking at the same experience. So that's where it's useful. And it provides interesting perspective. Never mind the Buddha's theory, his model, predated Jung's by 2,300 years. But it's helpful to look at men in the West and men in the East saying, what is this experience of being alive? So there we go. That is just the wave top view of the five skandhas. When the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara was practicing Prajnaparamita, she illuminated the five skandhas. She shone a light on this experience of being alive. And guess what? She saw that there was no owner to them. They are simply functions in our lives. We've got them. We don't live without the skandhas, but to say that somehow I own them, or this is my skandhas, or you're better at the skandhas than someone else, not. Once she emptied them all out, she crossed beyond suffering and difficulty. If you can really, dissociate, if you can really let go these skandhas and let them function to their very best, but not attach to them, we can cross beyond suffering and difficulty. So that's the first paragraph. And I find that this description of the skandhas, it's helpful to be able to say, maybe I'm not such a bad person after all. Or maybe I'm not the greatest, the biggest, the hugest. Vote for me. And meanwhile, I'll sell you a Bible and some tennis shoes. Never mind. Okay, that's the first paragraph. And that's a lot. In preparation for tonight, I copied out this incredible essay from Master Chengguan, who's the Tang Dynasty teacher. It's called the Wu Yunguan, the Contemplation of the Five Skandhas. And it's basically, a lot of what I said today came right from that. And his perspective on the five skandhas from 1400 years ago in the Tang Dynasty, but it's just so useful and current and relevant to the issues of getting through the day, getting through the night. So I will be. If anybody would like me to, Sam, I'll pass it on to you, and if anybody wants a copy, just totally, it's public domain and free. Sam will be happy to pass it on. I completely welcome any questions. Not today, it's already 5, but next week, let's see if we can't take that first paragraph and relate it to our sitting before we move on to paragraph 2. So I want folks to digest this 5 skandhas idea. So, and at least so you can say you've heard it, you're familiar with it. It's a lifetime of contemplation. Certainly nothing that you get in a blink, you know. So, and Master Chung Guan's analysis is really helpful. So, should we? Do we have those?
Oh, in the back of the handbook.
Oh yeah, the back of the handbook. So send out all of the happiness of what a blessing to be alive in the Gold Coast in the year 2024. To think of all the places we could be alive and we're not, and be so grateful for all the blessings here. Every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see, our hands and hearts can find in giving unity. Lay our minds away to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and may this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Ready? See you all next week.